Hello, I'm Pao, and in this video I'm bringing you the case of Daniel. It's a very interesting case about a boy who, when he was 16 years old, attacked his own parents. Daniel Petric was born on August 24, 1991 in Wellington, Ohio. He lived with his family, his father, Mark Petric, who was the community pastor, his mother, Susan, and his two sisters, Heidi and Holly. Daniel's parents had been happily married for 24 years. They had a typical, happy family. Daniel was a great athlete. From a young age, he showed a great interest in sports, and it was something he was very good at. Daniel was very active, fun, and loving with his parents. He seemed to be a boy with a bright future. His dream was to become a professional football player. Unfortunately, on one occasion, the family went skiing and snowboarding. Everything was going well until Daniel had an accident. He fell and severely fractured his back. The doctor said it was a very serious injury, and that unfortunately Danny would never be able to play sports again in his life. He wouldn't even be able to do physical activities because if he got hurt again, he could end up paralyzed. This had a huge impact on Daniel's life. He wasn't diagnosed, they didn't do a psychological evaluation, but I imagine, and this is just an assumption, that he was depressed. His behavior changed a lot after this accident, and literally he lost his dream. He wanted to be an American football player, and now he wouldn't be able to do it. What he loved most was playing sports, and now he couldn't do it anymore. Basically, all his dreams and aspirations in life were gone. For a while, he lost a lot of mobility. He couldn't run, he couldn't walk long distances, and when he did walk, he had to do it slowly to avoid getting hurt. Daniel took refuge in video games since it was the only activity he could do and that he enjoyed. He was super competitive when he played sports, and he was the same way with video games. Daniel had always liked video games. He used to play with his dad all the time, and his favorite games were sports games. But after the accident, this changed. Now he liked battle and war video games. His favorites were Call of Duty and Halo. These video games mainly consist of killing. Here I want to mention that in all the reports I saw, and when I was looking for information about this case, they always blame video games for something Daniel does later. I want to clarify that I don't share that opinion, I don't agree with it, and I don't think video games were the reason. But I still mention it so you don't think I'm saying that video games were to blame. Daniel developed an obsession with video games. He would play for hours and hours on end. He only stopped when he had to go to the bathroom. He ate while playing, and most of the food he consumed was junk food, specifically cereal. He didn't sleep, didn't go out with his friends, didn't do homework, didn't talk to his family. He just spent all his time playing. He went from being the fun, energetic, loving, and funny kid to being a sad and isolated boy. His parents started to worry about him. They no longer wanted him to play video games, and when Daniel asked them to buy him Halo 3, his parents refused. They even took away all his video games, which made Daniel furious, and they had a huge fight. When night began to fall, Daniel snuck out through his window and went to buy the video game behind his parents' backs. At this point, Daniel was already 16 years old. He sneaks out through the window, and when he comes back, his mom hears him trying to get back in through the window. She goes to his room and asks him, "What are you doing?" He told her the truth. He said he snuck out the window because he went to buy this game, and his parents scolded him for disobeying them. And they told him that they didn't care if he had bought it with his own money, he wasn't going to play it. His dad put the video game in the safe next to his gun, where Daniel wouldn't be able to get it, or so he thought. But a week after the argument, on October 20th, 2007, Daniel's parents were calmly sitting in the living room watching a baseball game. When Daniel comes up to them and says, "I have a surprise for you, can you close your eyes?" His parents were surprised by this but closed their eyes. They assumed that the surprise would actually be an apology for the argument they had had. But in reality, he stood directly behind his father, took out his father's gun, and shot him in the head. His father said he felt his head go numb and saw blood coming out of his skull. Then Daniel shot his mother 4 times. He missed one shot, but unfortunately, she died instantly. Daniel's plan was to blame his father, so he tried to get him to grab the gun. He threw it to him and said, "Here, Dad, your gun, take it," but his father didn't do it. At this point, his father was starting to lose consciousness, but he heard someone knocking at the door. It was Heidi, Daniel's sister, and her husband Andrew, who were coming to visit to watch the baseball game. Daniel tried to stop them from entering the house. He told them they couldn't come in because their parents had just had a big argument and didn't want anyone to come inside. Andrew became suspicious and tried to open the door. He managed to push his way in, and when he entered, he saw the blood, saw the weapon on the table, and pushed Heidi back so she wouldn't go into the house. He told her, "You can't see this, call 911. Daniel escaped and took his parents' truck. Before leaving, he grabbed the video game Halo 3 and headed to his friend's house to play it together as if nothing had happened. But on his way to his friend's house, the police stopped him. The first thing he said was this: Daniel stuck to the plan of blaming his own father. Meanwhile, he was acting as if he were sad and worried about his parents. The interrogation begins and Daniel continues with his plan to blame his father, even though the police start to get suspicious, since it seems like he didn't rehearse very well what he was going to say, because he's omitting details or changing some things. It seems like he's making everything up on the spot.
My dad was just yelling, just screaming at the top of his lungs at my mom. I immediately ran out there to see what was happening, and I saw that my mom had been shot. Then he turned and pointed the gun directly at me. Then he said he was sorry, and then he shot, and suddenly...
Fortunately, Mark, the father, survived, which ruined Daniel's plans. Mark was recovering in the hospital, and when he was able to speak, he was questioned by the authorities, where he confessed that the culprit was his own son. Mark spent quite some time recovering in the hospital, but fortunately, he didn't suffer any serious consequences. He was very angry. He said that at that moment he hated his son for what he had done and wanted to kill him. But the hatred faded when he saw his son again at the trial. He said he preferred to forgive him.
I am absolutely certain, beyond any shadow of a doubt, he felt a profound and overwhelming sense of regret, remorse, and deep guilt.
Daniel was tried as an adult and found guilty. Despite everything, his father asks for mercy for him.
I can't count the number of times that he said, "Yeah, that's small."
The opposing side was asking for the death penalty since the crime he committed was done with intent and premeditation. But the final sentence was life imprisonment, although in 23 years, he may be eligible for release. The judge blamed video games for this tragic case. He said that Daniel could not distinguish between reality and fiction. And he said something that, in my opinion, was pretty stupid. He said this: Daniel would shoot at the aliens in the video game, and the next day they would reappear and he could shoot them again. I firmly believe that Daniel had no idea that if he killed his parents, they would be dead forever. I think Daniel was old enough to understand the difference between a video game and reality, and to know that death is permanent. Mark stopped being a pastor, and says he will never forget Susan, but he got married again. Daniel is in prison, his family hardly ever visits him. They say it's very hard for them to see Daniel because of what he did to his mother. He is waiting to be able to appeal to reduce his sentence or to be released. This will be in 2030 when he is 39 years old.
Personally speaking, as for me, despite every single one of my most strenuous and persistent efforts throughout the day, I find that I am absolutely and completely still unable to open up this stubborn container of mine, no matter how hard I try.
That heavy wooden front door will always be open for me if I specifically request or demand it. I am honestly only missing those seemingly insignificant everyday objects and moments that we rarely realize have such profound sentimental value until they are finally gone from our lives forever. He knew the definition of killing and still chose to do it. I'm not justifying him or anything, but I don't think the reason he did this was because of video games. I think, and this is just my opinion, I imagine he was depressed. And his only refuge, the only activity he liked to do after losing everything, was playing video games. And when his parents took them away from him, that's why he got so angry. Again, I'm not justifying him, I just find it so much to blame video games. Because how many people, thousands and thousands of people, play video games and that doesn't make them killers? Much less kill their parents because they weren't allowed to play. And something I was thinking about while writing the script is that he did all this because he wanted to play Halo 3, and he didn't even get to play it. And maybe he won't be able to play it until he gets out of prison, or maybe he'll never get out of prison. That's all for this case. I love you all so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.